you. And often the criticism is insidious. It can be very debilitating as far as people are concerned. I guess the flip side to that, though, is if you're in the public spotlight, you have to accept a certain amount of that.
Yes. Remember that social media brings a spotlight of a different kind. It doesn't mean that the spotlight wasn't necessarily always there in the case of where there's a celebrity. So they still had cameras on them from a paparazzi perspective. And I'm talking generally now, not just South African celebrities, not just Hollywood, just in general. There were always cameras. There were people following them, getting stories about them, raising scandal. It's just with social media, you also choose to put the spotlight onto yourself in terms of sharing with the world, number one. But because of that, and because information flows in real time, and things happen as and when, it's not necessarily curated like the media houses would curate it, that spotlight then intensifies.
And it intensifies, and often the comments that we read are mean-spirited and very personal. That is different, I guess, from, as you put it, a slightly more curated message.
So remember, people are hiding, I call them keyboard terrorists. They're hiding behind their anonymity. They're sitting there with their little phones and, you know, in the space of a private room or whatever the case is, and feel that they can say and do and make mean comments and be justified in those in terms of their opinions of the world or that person. And when that is done, if I can put it that way, people then go, but why did you have to be so mean? Now, I'm just speaking very generally in terms of, if you look at people like the Kardashians, which I know you hate, but just in terms of the amount of criticism and judgment and this kind of mean-spiritedness that they are subjected to, is that literally, Jem, it's actually a movement, if I can put it that way, where people go online to go and see what the comments are as opposed to what the story was. It's become a movement. It's become the way social media operates.
And then what happens, it feeds off itself.
Yes, it does.
And the comments simply get nastier as people try to outdo each other.
As people try to outdo each other, as jealousy starts to become more open, as envy starts to, and we're talking about the negative, I mean, the positives are obvious.
Yes.
So from the negative perspective, it's very much that. And some people deal with it very well, or they try to. Some people don't. And that becomes the thing, is that and some people start dealing with it, and it comes to a point maybe, and I mean, we're humans, so from an emotional perspective, we have to deal with it.
You and I are not psychologists.
No.
But we can imagine how this onslaught, this daily onslaught of negativity can really have an impact on the psyche. I think that is a given.
Yeah.
Should celebrities, when they're attacked, reply, block, or simply ignore?
So there's a multiple answer to that question. So from an academic and a technical perspective, now not from a psychological perspective, our recommendation, and this is not just for celebrities, this is for all brands, is that it depends on what is being said and done and what the situation is, and that's how you decide whether you're going to respond, block, reply. So let me give you a couple of examples very, very quickly. Where there's a need to be able to respond, where there needs to be clarity about a particular issue.
So
where
defamatory and possibly a factual error.
A factual error, like you would from a curated general aspect where you need to correct certain perception, miscommunication, you put out a very general message. Where it's just mean-spirited and it's just that kind of behavior, there is no reason to respond, because you are reducing yourself to that the moment you feel you need to respond to it or justify it. In terms of blocking is seen as passive-aggressive. So the passive aggression comes from the perspective of, remember it's red, it's perceptive. Blocking comes from the perspective, and I've blocked people, because the attack becomes personal. The attack becomes, I want to come after you. So you need to be able to remove that person from your space. It's the same as closing a door.
But in this case, isn't a little bit of passive aggression better than overt aggression?
Oh, God, yes.
Shut them out of the loop completely.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying to you. So blocking, if you block every single time, it's seen as passive-aggressive. But when it reaches a point where it is a personal attack, it's coming after you. It's not just a once-off. It's not just here or there. You have to be able to take those those steps in order to protect yourself.
And the trouble often is you'll block someone, and the fact that you've blocked them, whether it's passive-aggressive or not, then becomes a talking point itself.
Yes, and therefore I'm saying it's important for you to be able to look at the situation and go, when it's a personal attack, what would you do in the real world? Remember, the physical real world reflects in the online world and vice versa. They're just mirrors of each other. So what you would do here, generally, you would do there. You need to look at how would you, let's look at something completely different. We, from a security perspective, living in South Africa, we put up walls and gates and this and that and alarm systems, yet we don't put security stuff on our online assets. So we need to think about the online world as though it was the real world. What would we do in those spaces? This is what we need to be able to do in those spaces.
What's the online solution to the burglar alarm or the guard dog or the wall?
We need to make sure that our online assets, our profiles, are protected from a security settings perspective.
So this is it's the privacy issue.
It's a privacy issue, yes.
Simple to do on a Facebook.
Simple to do. That's the one aspect of it. So that's the basics. When people are engaging with you, whether you're a celebrity in the public eye, brand, etc., even just a normal human being that has got a profile out there, you need to be able to look at who is following you. When did you last do an audit on the number of people that are following you? How many fake profiles are following you? Because if you're a fake profile, it means that it opens up a whole other can of worms. And I mean, we can have a long conversation about this. But what I'm saying to you is essentially, psychologically, we need to look at our online profiles the way we look at ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you to an extent. I mean, in an ideal world, but I mean, for goodness sake, Yavi, who's going to bother going through new Twitter followers to see where there are fake accounts? I'm just not interested.
No. I know that. I'm saying there's ways and means of doing it where it literally runs like a filter and it happens in the background. But I'm saying to you, like we do, when it comes to things like people being attacked and I'm being attacked, I need to then step it up and look at it in a particular way. You know, so I'm not saying you're going to go and you're going to like kind of, you know, tick every person off. No. It runs through various systems. And these systems are available.
That could be a serious waste of time. Yavi Madare, thank you very much indeed. ENCA now.